So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Meet the Students session as part of our Postgraduate Open Day in the Institute of Continuing Education here at the University of Cambridge. My name's Chris Huggins. I'm Director of Academic Programmes here within the Institute. I've got oversight over a lot of the courses that we run, particularly at postgraduate level. It's my pleasure this evening to be hosting a Meet the Students panel. I hope you'll find this session really informative to give you an insight about what it's like to be a student with us on the variety of courses that we have. And we've got two students who are joining us this evening to talk through their experiences with you. So we've got Henry Fernando, who's on our postgraduate certificate in philosophy. And we've got Rebecca De Pelle, who's on our postgraduate certificate in teaching creative writing. So we'll hear from each of them a bit more in a moment. But the format of this session is we will have the opportunity to get some questions from you. So please do use the functions available for you to do that. And we've got some pre-prepared questions as well. And I hope that the answers that our student panelists give this evening will give you a real insight into what it's like to be a student with us. So if you do have any questions, please do feel free to ask them. We'll try our best to get through as many as we can this evening. But I hope you enjoy this evening's session and find it informative. So I'm going to start by asking each of our students to introduce themselves and what course they're studying. Henry, could we go over to you first just to introduce yourself? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Hi, everyone. My name is Henry Fernando. I'm from the Philippines. By profession, I am into banking and fintech, but I also do teach a little bit of philosophy on the side at the university level here back home in the University of the Philippines. I'm currently studying the Postgraduate Certificate in Philosophy under ICE, under Dr. Alex Carter. And yeah, I look forward to talking to all of you today.
Thank you, Henry. Welcome, and we look forward to hearing from you more. Rebecca, over to you to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Rebecca De Pelle. I graduated from the postgraduate certificate in teaching creative writing in 2023. So I've been a secondary English teacher and academic leader for 3 decades, I hate to say. But since having done the postgraduate certificate, I now work as a freelance facilitator and educator in creative writing.
Brilliant, thanks. That's really helpful just to get a bit of background on you both. So we're going to go in the same order again, and I'm going to ask you to really say what motivated you to study your course. So, Henry, over to you. What made you want to apply to do a philosophy postgraduate certificate with us?
Okay, thank you very much. This is actually my third year at ICE. During my first 2 years, I took up the undergraduate certificates in philosophy, also under Dr. Alex Carter. Those were conducted fully online. All of our meetings back then were conducted via Zoom. Um, and at the end of my 2 years, I was so satisfied with what I had learned, but at the same time, I also wanted to learn some more. That's when Alex told us about the PG certificate, the postgraduate certificate in philosophy course here in philosophy. And what attracted me the most was two things. Firstly, the PG cert has a face-to-face component. So for 3 teaching weekends within the academic year, I fly all the way to Cambridge in order to learn from our tutors, as well as engage with some of my classmates. My classmates come from all over the world. Some of them are from Mexico. Some of them are from different countries in Europe. Some of them are from the US. Some of them are from Asia, etc. Right? So just being able to immerse yourself in that kind of multicultural, interdisciplinary environment was very appealing for me as a philosophy teacher and as a banker. Right? So I'm able to have life both inside and outside of philosophy. The second thing which appealed to me was that I learned that the PG cert could be used as a stepping stone for even further studies. So I am also an academic. I do already have an MA in philosophy, but the PG cert from Cambridge, right? One of the best, if not the best institution in the world. It's just incredibly exciting and motivating. For example, I know that this can be used as a stepping stone to the MPhil in Cambridge. Maybe one day I could pursue doctoral studies if things go a certain way. So yeah, those are two of the main reasons why. But I'm happy to share more reasons later on.
Thank you, Henry. That's really interesting insights. Thank you. Rebecca, how about you? What motivated you to take the course that you studied?
Well, it had nothing to do with the fact that the University of Cambridge turned me down in 1986, obviously. Got here in the end. No, what it was, it was fine. I had a great time at Edinburgh. No, what it was having been a teacher for so long and wanting to move out of the school context and feeling unsure in terms of whether there would be a sort of transferable set of skills from being a teacher in a classroom with adolescents, where I teach creative writing within the context, unfortunately, of exams 90% of the time, whether that would travel into a new life working as a freelance educator in creative writing. I also wasn't sure if there was such a thing as a freelance life as an educator teaching creative writing, or one that would financially enable me to live. And so it was partly, largely exploratory for me. There was also the personal element of the fact that I had just passed 55 and had felt that thing of I wanted a third act, that was going to be interesting, challenging, provocative, take me in other directions, and I wasn't sure I'd be able to do it, but I wanted the challenge of doing academic writing again, academic study, which I hadn't done since my MA, my PGCE years ago. And as Henry was saying, one of the large attractions was to be able to have the residential weekends. So I've seen other courses, obviously, that are purely online, but I wanted the experience of being in a room with people and learning from them. So yes, it was academic change, challenge, sort of third stage of life, and seeing if there could be those transferable skills from what I've been doing for so long into a change in my professional path.
Thank you very much. What I like about both of your answers is there's a real sort of mix of personal motivation and professional motivation as well. So, there's a real nice balance between wanting to pursue a particular interest that you're really interested in, but also seeing advantages for career development and supporting you in your professional development as well. So thank you for that. That's really interesting perspectives there to hear. You mentioned, Rebecca, about the sort of attractiveness of the residential elements of the course and getting to meet different people who are studying your subject. So most of our postgraduate courses do include a sort of residential element where we get the students together. I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit more about your experience on those and what it's like to be on a residential and learn in that relatively intense setting, but I guess also quite exciting setting where you get to meet other people as well.
Sure. Well, I took the postgraduate course while I was still working. So I was still working full time as a teacher. My children are grown up, so that was different. But the joy, unfortunately, I had a school who had the foresight to think, yes, it's okay if she's not there on a Friday and a Saturday. There's something very exciting about carving out that space from what can become, however much you love your career, rather a treadmill, and investing in your own interests. And so doing the reading in advance, again, it depended on, for some people, it was really difficult to do because of their own circumstances. For me, I was able to really indulge in really exploring the stuff before we got to the weekend, which I really enjoyed. The breadth of people there really surprised me. So they were older than me and also younger than me, all the way down to someone who just graduated. In terms of race, sexual identity, heritage. There was a huge range. People flying in from different countries or coming from just down the road. And that was an extraordinary mix. It is high intensity. You do move from lecture to lecture to lecture to lecture to lecture. But it is within a small group setting. And I was exhausted, but I think that's partly because I'm old. But it was tempered by the excitement of being back in the game, as it were, the academic game. And socially was lovely. So I don't know what it was like for philosophy, but we're teaching creative writing. We had evenings where people then read their work. We had people who played Chopin after we'd read our work. And you are in a very beautiful setting for those fleeting moments of freedom that you can whiz outside into the beautiful parkland. But I think it makes a huge difference being able to be face to face, actually, and engage back into that. Especially if you've been to university, your university experience is unlikely to have incorporated the real benefit of the sort of Oxbridge type tutorial teaching, and certainly not on that sort of level of engagement. So I found that really, really useful. I think the 3 weekends were definitely the most attractive part of the course.
Thanks, Rebecca. Henry, I understand you've just finished a residential, so perhaps you can tell us a bit about your experience on that and what that's been like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually just landed here in Manila around 3 or 4 hours ago. So I'm still on British time. Okay, so I agree with Rebecca. I think the residential teaching weekends are the best part of the PG cert. I'd like to focus a bit more on the fact that the students, at least in philosophy, though I suspect the same applies to other courses, the students just come from diverse backgrounds, and it's not just a matter of where we are geographically from, but also what we professionally do. So I would venture to say that even most of my classmates never had any formal background in philosophy. Many of them are into the hard sciences. Many of them are bankers by profession. Many of them are barristers and lawyers. One of my closest friends there, actually composes music, and many of them have never written a philosophy paper in their life. But, and I'm saying this as someone who does teach philosophy at the college level, I think that it makes the experience incredibly enriching, because it is an advantage when you have people coming from different backgrounds and people different insights contributing to one discipline or to one subject. I suspect the same can be said of creative writing. You have a much richer discussion and much richer room of engagement when different people come together to share vastly different insights. I think the same applies to philosophy. While we have different views and backgrounds, we all have a common passion to just know a little bit more about the world, right? But beyond the actual academic learning and the teaching, the social interactions are great. So many of us arrived in Mattingly Hall on Friday afternoon and Friday evening, and we just hung around the pub and had a couple of drinks. Uh, the teaching sessions actually range from 10 a.m. To 5 p.m. So we meet as early as breakfast, as early as 7 a.m. and we're already talking about our lives, how our day will go. We talk about what activities we do in our free time. Definitely in between the lectures, we interact during coffee breaks and tea breaks. And of course, we interact after dinner. My own friends and I, just last Saturday, we explored the grounds around Cambridge close to midnight, right? We just enjoyed walking around and seeing the stars. Cambridge is a wonderful place to meet different people.
Thanks, Henry. So some really nice testimony there about not only the learning environment that you get on a residential weekend, but also some of the social connections and the opportunity to meet people from a range of different backgrounds, professional lives, and so on. So yeah, thank you both for sharing your experiences there. For my next question, I'm going to move a bit beyond the residentials. So obviously you have those intense periods where you've all come together to do your learning, but I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit about the learning support and the student community outside of those residential periods, and how you in your experience managed to stay maintained and engaged in your studies outside of those periods. Rebecca, you mentioned you were doing this while you were working full time, for example. So how did you manage to maintain engagement in the course outside of those residential periods?
Well, I think the course, you get a course reader and with material to consider beforehand. And as I say, they're quite useful at breaking down, you must have read this, this is optional, whatever. I really enjoyed carving out the space to engage with that, and actually with the reading lists as well. And I think one of the other ways of keeping that engagement going is that you are given a tutor. And I think I was very fortunate to have an extremely, I mean, I don't know that there are not good tutors, but my tutor was very good. And I was surprised how approachable she was, how available she was. And so there were times when I said, "Oh, I'm quite enjoying this. Where else can I look?" And she would come back with something. Or I'd say, "I'm finding this element, particularly when you're writing the assignments. I'm not sure about this element." And she would, "Well, think about this or think about that." And it wasn't just tied to, here's your one tutorial slot, which you are booked into about obviously your academic submissions, your essays, working towards the portfolio. But there were opportunities to do that as well. We also had, which may prove terrifying to other people who don't like these things, but we very quickly established a WhatsApp group of the whole course. Don't worry, you don't have to do it. But I really liked it. And actually, there was social engagement and all the rest of it, laughing, haha. But there was also, I'm struggling with this bit of it. Have you thought about this? Or I've decided to do this. And there was very quickly developed into a working community that I found really helpful. It might have been from the sense of we all very strongly were like, let's not share grades because that's silly and we're not competitive, to kind of, oh my God, what did you get? But from that level to more of a, I found this link, or posting academic articles that you'd found somewhere else, or when we were doing the essays, have you looked at this website? Has so and so seen this? So that was really helpful. So I was able to, because of my personal circumstances, make time to read in that way. But definitely having a great tutor, and definitely the way that the whole cohort, it's that sense of mature learning when people are there, not because they have to be, but because they've elected to be. And so you inevitably have, I think, a more fruitful engagement.
Thanks, Rebecca. Some really good insight there and some tips as well, I think, which is always useful. Henry, how about you? How are you maintaining engagement now you're back home? What are you going to be doing outside of the residentials to keep involved with the course?
Okay. Well, a couple of points. Firstly, as Rebecca mentioned, we formed our own WhatsApp group as early as after the first teaching weekend. It's quite an active group, right? I mean, of course, we talk about our essays, we talk about tips or advice on how to answer one question or another. But you can also use it for very non-formal, non-academic purposes. Like just yesterday, we greeted one of our friends happy birthday because she was celebrating her birthday during the teaching weekend. Um Another way in which we are able to stay in touch and connected is through the VLE. So in our course, we have a virtual online platform where all of the readings and all of the set texts, all of the lecture videos are uploaded. But it's on that same platform that ICE provides spaces where you can express your thoughts or raise questions or even talk to your classmates about one point or another, and that's where it can get very engaging. Sometimes the discussions even evolve into debates, and that can be a good thing, because the whole point of learning together is to stimulate your thinking and being able to show independence of thought in philosophy or in creative writing, and being able to defend your own point and develop your own ideas. A third final point, I think ICE as a whole is very good at keeping students connected and feeling like part of a broader community. Like there are regularly posts and emails about student networking dinners, or there are you even get emails about student unions at Cambridge. So even though a lot of this is done remotely, even though I just travel once per term to Cambridge, I feel very much like a bona fide Cambridge student, because of all of the announcements and updates and efforts that they do to make you sure that you're aware of what's going on in the broader community. And I think that's important for uh, keeping you motivated for your course. That's it.
Thanks, Henry. Some really fascinating insights there from you both. So thank you. That's really nice to hear about how community is such an important aspect of learning, as obviously as well as the learning that happens, but being part of that community is an important part of that. I wonder if you can talk a bit about now some of the support you get from the course team and the tutors on your courses, what it's like, what the relationship with your tutors has been like, and the kind of support you get from them. So, Henry, shall we go with you first? That should be fresh in your mind.
Okay. Okay. Right. At first, it can be intimidating. To know that you're going to come face to face with some of the best scholars in the world who are teaching at Cambridge. But I can tell you that nothing is farther from the truth. They are the friendliest, most approachable, most charming teachers that you can learn from. So for example, our tutor just last weekend, her name is Cecilia Muratori. She's actually based in Italy. She ended our classes last weekend by giving us her email and encouraging us to send her our questions, to give her updates on what we're doing. In particular, since I also attend philosophy conferences, I remember I approached her over breakfast just yesterday, and she said, "Let me know whenever you're in Europe for a philosophy conference." And I said, "Sure." So the teachers are there not just to keep track of how you are developing academically, not just in terms of checking how you're doing in your actual essays, but I think they're genuinely interested in knowing about your growth and development as a person in your field. So I do encourage you to reach out. They are mentors who are very happy to help you grow in many ways and to keep giving you advice. So some of the people at ICE are everyone at ICE is just very helpful and friendly, and I think it's one of the strengths of being part of that program.
Thank you. That's really nice to hear. Rebecca, how about you? What's your experience?
Yeah, I would say the same. I was nervous as well at the beginning, but I was extremely impressed that my tutor, as I said just previously, was available and prompt and engaged every time, despite, well, in the face of obviously working full time as a lecturer, but also working as a writer. And I think also in the way the feedback to the three assignments and then the portfolio at the end has been extraordinary, of a really high level. Having worked in education for 3 decades, I know what good feedback and bad feedback looks like. Um, and really, really extraordinary. It was actually probably because I do creative writing and there's the risk of bringing emotion in, but I found it incredibly moving with the first essay, that the quality of feedback was both specific to technical elements, to elements of the course, to academic focuses, potentially maybe on the depth of analysis or whatever it was, but it was also engaged with my own writing style, with what they knew to understand as my own professional ambitions, and also my personal ambitions and personal circumstances. So it was extraordinary. It was very clear that it hadn't just been read in 3 seconds and been dashed off. And that was the case with all the stuff that I wrote. And actually, it engaged me to move substantially from between indicative grades at the beginning to what I managed to achieve at the end. And in fact, that professional relationship has continued with my tutor. So I left 18 months ago, and we now operate in a personal but also professional relationship. And so there's now been networks and links I'm involved with that what she was involved with that now I'm involved with. So definitely, I think the word field Henry used, in the field, you are definitely via that relationship with a tutor, you are entering into an academic field in which you take your place, which I think is extraordinary, really, just on a 1-year course, that is what ends up being the case.
Thank you both for those insights into the tutors and the support you get from them and the relationship you have. I've got a question here about future pathways with your courses. So I think we've got potentially two interesting perspectives here. So Rebecca, we'll start with you as you've finished your course, and how has the course helped you develop from the point that you finished the course in terms of your professional development, but also your personal development as well? How's the course, once you finished, been useful for you?
It's been extraordinarily useful. So on a personal front, I was genuinely really elated with what I managed to achieve in terms of the actual sort of result. And that did make a difference in adding to my confidence to move forwards into different things. Professionally, it's made all the difference in that I now, within 18 months, do work as a teacher of creative writing, and I am financially able to do that. And it has transformed my life in that sense. The course that I wrote, the Teaching Creative Writing, the middle assignment is designing a course. I've now taught that course. I'm now writing a book based on that course as a teaching aid to other people learning how to teach creative writing. So those are direct, and lectures that we had on writing, teaching creative writing in different contexts. So whether it be prison or hospice, etc. I now work in 4 of those different areas. I work with young people who are travellers. I work with young men who have been exposed to the county line trauma. So there's been a direct link between the lectures I had, the essays that I wrote, and the study to what I now do. And in fact, the guest lecturers, again, I am now in a professional working relationship with. So after the course, I would then contact them and say, hi, you gave a lecture and so, I'm doing this, can you help, kind of thing. And I've ended up having Zoom, as it were, tutorials with them. So yes, it enabled me personally to move from being a secondary school teacher to working in a much broader field. There's no doubt at all that there is some elements with funding, or when I've been pitching to organisations to offer courses for them, it helps that there's a PG certificate from Cambridge there. There's no doubt about that. So that is helpful if that's something that's important to you. But I would say yes, it's difficult to not sound like I've drunk the Kool-Aid on this, because it really is extraordinary, the change in my life, personally and professionally. I essentially have a whole new career now, and it is directly related to what I studied at ICE.
Thank you, and I think that's
Paid.
It's an incredible story, actually, when you bear in mind it's a relatively short course for a year part-time as well. So that's amazing to hear the sort of transformative power it can have. Henry, you're still on your course, about halfway through, I'm guessing. Looking to the future, how do you see your course helping you in your future development?
Okay. Well, I think since it's my third year with ICE, I can say how it already has helped me in general with my professional and personal development. Okay. Professionally, the impact is definitely very direct. I've been studying Plato and Kant for I think almost 15 years now, ever since I was an undergraduate in college. But I just learned so much more about Plato and Kant from our postgraduate course. Like just this weekend, I thought I already knew Kant. It turns out I didn't, or at least not as well as I would have liked. So I suspect whenever I talk about or whenever I lecture about Kant in the future to my own students, I'm going to come equipped with my own new insights, my own views, my own lessons. And even when I write papers, since I have to write and research and publish papers as a member of the academe, I'm very sure that what I learned over the weekends is going to factor into my own arguments and how I develop my own positions on certain topics. Personally, I completely agree with Rebecca, right? So, for example, in my part of the world, very, very few people get the opportunity to study at Cambridge University. So the mere fact that you have or that you will have University of Cambridge on your resume and a postgraduate qualification at that will make a difference, for example, in how you're approached by people for opportunities to teach at their universities, to give keynote lectures at their conferences, or even to be part of certain organizations. That's going to be a big difference. But there is a deeper dimension to that because I've known our course director, Alex Carter, for almost 3 years now. And from year one, Alex has been uh, the best mentor you could possibly ask for, because one of the things that we talk about apart from our actual coursework and our requirements is uh what it would be like to pursue even further studies in the UK. So for example, I have picked his brain on should I apply for an MPhil in philosophy? What does Cambridge look for? What about a PhD in philosophy? Since I do take philosophy very seriously, as both from both a personal and professional standpoint, it's the network that you have, and not just from the course director, but even other people connected with ICE. I think that's very important. Because ICE does get tutors and instructors from outside of Cambridge as well, right? So I did mention Cecilia is based in Italy. I think that contributes to the comprehensiveness of the program, because it really makes every effort to give you as many resources and insights as possible. So that I think that is something that is often overlooked in the course. It's not just actual learning, but the networking and the connections that you have after, right? That's why it's continuing education. It literally continues even after your time at ICE. So I love that part of being here.
Great, thank you. We've had a question come in, I guess, on a more sort of practically minded question, asking when the weekends begin and end. Henry, I'm wondering if you can just share I guess the timetable, I guess, of the recent weekend that you've done as an example of how those residential weekends work.
Okay, good. That's a very good question. I mean, strictly speaking, you have to be there by 10 a.m. on Saturday morning, and you can leave as early as 5 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, because that time period essentially covers all of the teaching that you need to get done. In practice, people arrive earlier than the teaching weekend, and some people leave later than the teaching weekend. Some people do both. So personally, I arrived on Friday afternoon, if I'm not mistaken, because I was excited to see my friends. We went to a nearby pub for a few drinks, and we talked about how our lives are going, what we thought about the lessons. We do have some classmates who, as soon as the lessons ended at 5 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, they went straight to the train station because they had to go back to their respective homes. Some of them had to fly back. Personally, I chose to stay until Monday evening. I spent one more night at Madingley Hall because I used most of Monday to explore Cambridge. I also had coffee with Alex Carter, my tutor. Um, for the third term, our little friend group, so we have a kind of clique, we're planning to stay a few days after the last teaching weekend, maybe 2 or 3 days in Cambridge, maybe an extra day or two in London, just to bond and explore the places that you can see. So essentially the timetable is quite flexible as long as you're there for the actual teaching. That's what's important. Although if you absolutely have to go early, I suppose you can. So just one last point. One of my classmates just last Sunday had to leave after lunchtime because she had to be back in Switzerland for Sunday evening. So ICE understands that we all have very complex lives. We have our own schedules, but it is highly encouraged to stay at least for the teaching portion.
Thanks, Henry. Useful to get the sort of live experience there. Rebecca, I'm guessing it was a similar kind of arrangement with you. I know the timetable will vary a bit by course depending on how it works, but
Yeah,
largely,
exactly the
of course.
same. Exactly
Okay.
the same, except that I think the tip I didn't realize straight off is exactly what Henry was saying, as in you can, so that Madingley Hall's accommodation operates separately from ICE in the sense that you can book your accommodation outside of the time of the actual weekend teaching course. And I'd say the vast majority of people got there on the Friday for precisely that reason. I mean, for most of us, arriving by 10 o'clock on Saturday from Cambridge is really difficult. I mean, unless you're in London, it's very difficult to get there in that time. So most people are there Friday night, but certainly people who are flying in from Australia or Canada or wherever, they were there as early as Wednesday or stayed as long as Wednesday the other side. Yeah, top tip, book your Madingley Hall for that last weekend, Henry, because it goes really quickly because the general public book the rooms as well. So yeah, worthwhile getting in there. Worthwhile getting in there because Cambridge can be really difficult to get accommodation in otherwise. But yes, it runs within that group 10 till 5 each day.
Thank you. It was really useful to get those insights on those courses, so thank you very much. We're going to sort of slowly bring things to a close now, but I'm going to take a question from a previous student panel that I've hosted before, which was submitted, which is, can you sum up your ICE learning experience in 3 words? So I'll give you just a moment to quickly think of that. But yeah, can you sum up what it's like to be an ICE student studying the courses you're on in 3 words? I might be mean and say, Rebecca, have a go first.
I knew it was going to be, yeah, she does creative writing. Challenging, engaging, life-changing. There's a hyphen in the last one, so it's.
I'll accept it. It's fine. Thank you. Thank you. It's really helpful. Henry, how about you? 3 words. What's your learning experience at ICE been like so far?
I had life-changing as well, but I'm going to replace that with a third one. Stimulating, social, and motivating.
Great. Thank you so much, both of you. Sorry to put you on the spot there rather meanly, but it's useful, I think, just to get a sense as to, the key takeaways that you've had from your course and stuff. So I'm going to wrap up the session here, and I really want to say thank you to you both for taking the time out of an evening, or in your case, Henry, a very early morning, to speak with us and to give our applicants a feel about what it's like to be one of our students, what it's like to learn with us, what it's like to be part of the social and academic community here at ICE. So really thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your experiences. And to everyone else that's been listening, I hope that you've found this evening's sessions informative and helpful. Obviously, please feel free to get in touch with us if you've got any more questions about what it's like to be a student with us, or if you've got any particular questions about your specific courses, please do get in touch with us using the details on our website. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to answer any questions that you do have. But I'll wrap the session up here now and say good evening to everyone. And yeah, thank you once again to our panelists, and thank you to everyone else for taking the time to find out a bit about our courses. So thank you.